Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio, live today on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday already? Hard to believe. The 15th. Well, we're getting a lot of snow here in Ontario, Canada. It's bizarre. We didn't get much winter at all up until now, and now that it's supposed to be spring, we're getting winter. I'm a little bit ticked off about this. Just one of those things on my scale of what ticks Tracey off. That's not big on my list, other than please get me out of here, come rescue me, take me to, I don't know, where should we go? Costa Rica looks really nice. We could go to Mexico. Mexico is nice. Maybe Thailand. Anywhere warm. Just take me somewhere warm. Where's warm and cheap? And makes margaritas. And dinner, because I don't do any of those things. So, trying to get a handle on what's going on right now. We have to ask some questions, don't we? What is magic, anyways? My own personal experience is about putting your will, your desire, your emotions through a process. There's many ways to do this. It's rituals and ceremonies and memes, art. When you use that process and push it into the hive mind of humanity, it's much easier now with the internet. It's vast. So many people all around the world experiencing it at the exact same time. What does it mean, anyway? A fancy word for an idea. It is a thought form, so it is a golem. Millions of people around the world charging up a thought form until it literally affects reality, until you start seeing weird coincidences, synchronicities. And again, thousands of years ago, the Gnostics came up with the meme that this reality is a prison that we must escape. That idea was used in a movie called The Matrix. Millions of people watched it. Now fast forward to now, 2017, and you have all these tech elites claiming that the world is a computer simulation. Well, that's a meme. If you notice, when you walk by a bird or an animal that you don't know, it doesn't stick around to see if you're a nice person. Normally it just flies away, because if it's wrong, which in most cases it will be, it will lose its life. So from that, you should know that the world is pretty negative. And it's naturally so, naturally negative, as one of the poles must be negative and one must be positive. It naturally hits the pendulum in the direction of fear. Fear is easy. When I look at things going on Facebook and Snapchat and many of the social media things, what I'm seeing lately, as a meme, isn't it sad what they're doing in China with those dogs? As if that's an isolated incident in humanity's scheme of things. Humans aren't nice in a group. What we are when we have civilizations is jealous and angry, and we like to steal other people's stuff and blame other people for what we've done and blame someone who has more stuff than we do about them taking all the gold, even though we want it and we would be just as big a-holes if we could be. We just haven't had the chance. What this causes is an entire world of numerous fearful, uptight, backbiting, ungrateful, jealous citizens, which is all part of the exact same fear game. Now, it's also true there are other forms that we eat food, we need to eat bursts of energies that come from emotional scenarios as well. We feed on this. This is what we are. We need to look ourselves in the face and own this. There are many constantly on the prowl for causing such things, enlisting others to take part, because the more you have, more people united in purpose, the stronger that purpose gets, more chance of it going through. What this equals pretty much is betrayal, animosity from all the unbalanced subjects. You can try to assist them, all you wish, but you must begin to choose what level you do that on, because you have so many people on their daily roller coaster just looking to collide with you, to cause you an emotional event, to feed something that is out of their visual spectrum, aka trolling. So they find you, they come after you, they attack you, because it's still an emotional release. Even if it's a negative one, it's attention. But once you learn this, and I have done so the hard way, since I'm always trying to teach, to assist, one needs to make proper adjustments, especially as time continues. People sell the old real estate in their minds to Hollywood because of this marriage. Now, the marriage between politics and theater. And again, this is all Aleister Crowley's doing. This was all set up to be this exact way. Probably started when Reagan got in, Ronald Reagan, because he was a TV guy too. Well, movies. But these are how things happen. So once you learn this, and I am trying, you need to make adjustments. People sell all the real estate in their mind to Hollywood, to media, to politics, which uses programming codes that are not so obvious to cause dissension amongst those close to you. Many people are basically losing their, you know what, right now. And only they can stop it for themselves. Someone cannot stop it for them. They would like you to stop it for them, but you can't. If they are unable to do this, well, it creates a rage in them against others around them, their children, their teachers, their parents, any person around them that cares, and lends them energy via advice, true love. Well, this is admonition. They will attempt to suck those people dry via events. They will cause, in their efforts to enlist a reaction in order to feed something they can't see, they've ignored, and imagine is themselves, since they no longer know who they truly are. They have become much more familiar with the programmed version of themselves that they can boot up every day in their curated life, on the internet and social media, and bam, reload program. And that's what's happening. since I've tried to help. With my words, with my stories. And now have a long line of people at this very moment who are trying to tear me down, as if that would have some effect. People don't realize how you must stand true to your purpose. You cannot waver. We are here for this moment right now. This is the thing we were here for. This is the happening. This is the event. This is the ribbon. But many have missed what they've been told, not just by me, but by everyone who's telling you the exact same thing. Over the lifetimes, and also for others on this plane. Common sense should tell them that I'm impervious to their schemes. But alas, common sense is not common, and they will only see me through their foggy, cracked lenses that I've worked tirelessly to mend and polish for them. But be warned, those who have not followed wholesome advice and have rejected, as if these higher truths are an invention of mine. God, no. And in the process of self-destruction, like a suicide bomber, they have a tendency to hurt themselves. Well, they hurt others around them with these seething projectiles that they spew from their mouths. Truth is nobody's invention. It just is. No one created it. It's no one's idea. It's true or it is not. That's it. That's why it stands. When we don't have the strength to continue, it stands. I stand in truth, so I will continue, even if there is no one listening. Myself, as it was in the beginning, so it will be in the end. That's why I created my own continuum, and you must too. To not be wavered by petty distractions and false judgments, because I realize we're probably all going through this right now. My friends, my brothers and sisters, and to all you trolls out there, Mordor awaits. You don't have to hasten this. It's here, right now. Now the great demon began to make aeons in the likeness of the real eternal realms, except that he produced them out of his own power. Important thing to keep in your mind. A lot of us have been knocked around psychologically, probably financially, because most of the world was knocked to their knees around 2007, 2008, the global financial crisis, being alarmed by naive explanations for it found in the press at the time. I've decided to attempt to map the power structure of Earth so that it would not happen again. Fool me once and all that. And when I say this is a personal quest of mine, I mean it. The goal was to get a sense of where Catherine Fitz's official reality bubble began, and to at least glimpse the scope and the surface area of the much wider circle called reality. It's all we can do. If 2016 taught us anything, it is that true governance, the structure of the planet Earth, remains opaque. so-called conspiracy theory is not a Rubik's Cube. You don't have to move all the pieces about until one day it all fits, and then all of a sudden, bam, we are finished. So the goal is to get a sense of the inertia of power in politics and economics and technology in order to at least adjust my own little plans accordingly. And I think to some point I'm successful. I'm currently doing much better than most at the Cassandring right now. The Cassandring of this particular apocalypse. I still like a good conspiracy theory, of course, particularly the batshit crazy ones like flat earth or interdimensional spider people from Saturn controlling governments of the world, because that's, you can't beat that. And they are very useful for keeping the reality tunnel muscles limber. I call it conspiracy yoga, so we can work out together. Plus, they are endlessly fascinating cultural objects in and of themselves. They are what happens in cultures that stop telling ghost stories by the campfire or sending children off to religious education, which typically amounts to pretty much the same thing. But there comes a point, not just in one's life, but also in the timeline, where conspiracy or para-political yoga yields diminishing returns. Get in, get your map, get out. We all know what happens when we stare into the abyss for too long. That is the secret of reality. Tunnel calisthenics, I guess. Obsess over a dark world, live in a dark world. A functional definition of social media, if ever there was one. So what is needed today is precisely the opposite. It is something I've been speaking to people about and tried to talk to you about before I took the hiatus. But unfortunately, I got too sick. Anyway, I think a much better term has been eroded into politeness through overuse. The radical direction for 2017 is towards personal utopia rather than personal dystopia. There will be groups of people, but this society banding together like this, I don't think so. I think some will, and those people will. You're going to Mordor. You're going to Mordor, and I'm just going to wish you well. Because in so keeping with the loosely Gnostic cosmology, which probably only exists in contemporary scholars' heads, I realize that, the informed Arcanology series, we shall match it with a new series, Aeonography, but I'll get to that a little later. There's a famous exchange in the recent Star Wars sequel, The Force Awakens, in which Han Solo announces to the young rebels, Rey and Finn, that the Force and the Jedi, mystical concepts that come to be seen as superstitious nonsense by most people, were all real. that the legends about them, all true. Han says, I thought it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And that's a word we don't use enough, I think. Mumbo jumbo, we should be saying that all the time. It's I'm a big mumbo jumbo fan. Anyway, the crazy thing is that it's true, all of it. This was a great tagline for, a popcorn movie. A rallying cry for all those real-life Jedi out there. But there's a flip side to the equation. Maybe one that a lot of people might not factor in to their calculations. Han's benediction can't help but remind me of a warning passed on by rocket scientist Ed Foreman, close confidant and friend to Jack Parsons, to his daughter when she cracked open one of the magical texts Foreman inherited from Parsons. It's all real. It all works. Foreman said about magic. Don't touch it. You'll get yourself in trouble. Words to live by, I think. You see, if the Jedi and the Force are real, so too are the Fifth, the Sith, and the dark side. If the Aeons are real, so too are the Archons. If angels are real, so too are the demons. Customer economics have conditioned we moderns to believe that we can pick and choose amongst the endlessly expanding menus of options and discard the bits we find uncomfortable or problematic. But if you believe that magic is a science or even a religion, then you have to follow its rules. Magic is like any other system. You can't go and randomly check out a huge bunch of chunks of code and expect it to still work. It's not how it happens. It is not how society works. If you make an evil empire, you're going to get an evil warlord. This is how it's done. Now look at how religions tend to collapse once they start trying to discard all those nasty bits of programming, the devil and sin and punishment and the rest, and we forget, who do we take this from? Are we going to meet those people? Are we going to have to explain why we took all their stuff and rewrote it? And it's problematic. So we have princes and principalities. Magic, we've come to understand it, today anyway, is based in no small part on medieval grimoires, a good number of which are essentially handbooks for coaxing the princes, the dukes, the earls of hell into doing your bidding. This all dates back to Babylon, when Pazuzu, yes, that Pazuzu, was regarded by magicians as, well, in the Near East, as nasty, but useful. Okay, time for a break. We'll be right back. Oh, sorry guys. I forgot to turn on my microphone. Oh. So, Pazuzu. Pazuzu, that we've talked about before, he's one from The Exorcist. Remember him? Big fan. So, Pazuzu was regarded by magicians in the Near East as nasty, but useful, one of the Lords of Light, and the one that you can enlist in your wars particularly against other demons. Babylonians had a big demon problem. A lot of problems with them. They still probably do. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see a Prince of Hell as a pushover or a soft touch. I'm thinking they drive a hard bargain for their services. Whether you see demons as objectively real or as unconscious projections, to me it doesn't really matter. Because once they figure out where your tender point is, they got you. Hot can burn. Magic is hot, or so they tell me. And we're seeing the kind of cultural custodianship applied to it, that a generation raised on libraries of data available with mouse click from birth applied to every single cultural epiphenomenon that bubbles to the surface now. The scope and the breadth of the ability to process, to collide, data, once considered trivial or irrelevant, can boggle the mind when viewed from a distance. But where is it really going? Interest in magic seems inevitable, again, because of the marriage. But to a generation raised on Harry Potter and Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films, which made magic so palatable and seductive. But one has to wonder if it is just the latest obsession. Ephemeral, but an obsession nonetheless, like vinyl collecting or organized skepticism or something durable. The reason I ask is I'm old enough to have lived through a couple of occult revivals now. I can't question the facility or the intellectual firepower a lot of people who've applied themselves to magic. Certainly not the people who've committed themselves to it anyway. Most of them are a lot smarter than I. But I have serious reservations about the power of magic itself. If you believe that it's real and that it works, you have to understand that it's not something you can walk away from once you get tired of it. And magic is something that's effed up the lives of some of the best and the brightest the world has ever known. The history of magic is like a Greek tragedy, a parade of incredible minds who paid a heavy price for trying to crash Olympus. John Dee, good example. Paracelsus, another. More recently, we have Crowley and Parsons. All these guys were brilliant. Polymaths, and under different circumstances probably would be sitting in history books next to Newtons, Galileos, Einsteins, but it didn't work out that way. A lot of otherwise brilliant magicians seem to break or ignore the cardinal rule. Somewhere or another, you must pay for this. You have to pay to play. You could even ask John Keel, Robert Anton Wilton, add them to the list if you want to grow that category a bit. And I'm not trying to discourage interest or involvement in magic. I'm not trying to pretend that I could anyway. This earth, this good earth, so of course it's gained consciousness by now. And that's not even talking about the off-planet stuff. That's just the body that you're inhabiting right here, because this body matters. I can tell you origins of this body. To go off-world, though, you got to go to another expert. I don't claim to know that. There could be entirely materialistic explanations for magic's reality. The power of suggestion, again, or the subtle and complex machinations of the unconscious. But that doesn't make the efforts any less real, or just as potently dangerous, which is why I think anyone who takes magic seriously is better off in the hands of an experienced practitioner, someone who knows where all the bodies are buried and the traps are laid. I bring this up because magic, however you choose to define it, seems to pop its cheery little head up, especially in times of chaos. And we seem to be tiptoeing on the edge of a volcano of chaos right now. Not just in this country, but on this planet. One that we haven't seen in 150 years. This is all around the world. The conditions are ripe. And this chaos is being stoked and manipulated by all kinds of players on all points of all different spectrums, political, cultural, economic, etc. And you may have noticed the spy versus spy I tried to get into with you in 2016. But the spy versus spy, the things happening after the 2016 election have gone mainstream now, and they've been bombarded with all kinds of meme magic and things of that sort ever since. And I'm sure it will all end well. Have you noticed how the 1-2 punch of Trump's Obama spying, tweet storm, and WikiLeaks Vault 7 CIA surveillance revelations seem to have knocked the extremely well-funded, extremely highly coordinated, and extremely well-aimed Russian hacking media campaign down for the count? You think that wasn't some kind of magic spell? Think again. Not holding. Trickster magic is alive and well. If you look, you'll see a new class of magicians out there who are very weird and highly attuned to sigil magic, using them as weapons in this not-so-secret war that we've been seeing played out in the media. So what now? Is the trickster's ascendant? Or is it Cronosan rising too? Because chaos magicians see the dweller of the abyss as a liberating force. And I'm worried that a lot of others may as well. Even if they don't necessarily acknowledge this being by name. Chrono non Zon. The world may look much the same in your daily life, for the most part, anyway. But can't you just sense that it's spinning vortex around your periphery? Can't you see it? Yeats prophesied a center that no longer held, and it's become de rigueur amongst the smart, set to rebel against the center, so much so that rebelling is now mainstream. How do you rebel against a center that no longer objectively even exists? Is it meaningful, this gesture, or is it an empty ritual of the fading past when rebellion had actual consequences? What we see over and over and over again, we've seen this played out repeatedly in the last 10, 20 years. It doesn't matter how something starts out. How it finishes that matters. And most things don't finish well. And maybe we'll come to learn that a collective center is as important to the body politic as your center is to your physical body. But perhaps it'll be too late by then. At times like these, when faith is lost in the old certainties or centers, that magic and the paranormal poke their heads up from the sand every time. When the gods break their contracts, it seems there are always ambitious understudies willing to do a little bit more business on the side. The Greek magical papyri date back to a time when the empire was collapsing. Religious conflict was erupting into street battles all over the major city centers. Mesopotamia was the venue for a never-ending struggle of nations, and subsequently produced some of the most startling magic history ever recorded. Babylonian religion, Babylonian magic are inseparable. The grimoires arose during times of crusades against the backdrop of the epic struggle between Christendom and Islam. But the crusades, again, this is where we get the bankers from, because a couple of men, 12 men actually, which is funny, there was 12 of them, were given the right to for usury. Christians didn't do that. Muslims didn't do that until, again, the Red Cross on their shirts. You know who I'm talking about. These are the bankers. They were then, they are now. And the spiritual supermarket of New York's burnt-over district can be tracked back to the Great Disappointment, when everyone seemed to whip themselves up in anticipation of some second coming that never came. Similarly, the occult revival in the 19th century took place under a mass dislocation, mass human misery, uncertainty, and despite large-scale Christian revival stuff, with social and economic pressures building everywhere, it's inevitable that magic is going to find a brand new audience. The question then becomes, what is magic? And there are new forms of it ready to emerge. And they can operate without belief, in the supernatural agency. Me magic is certainly one. Chaos magic is recent enough to still be considered new. And of course, there's synchromysticism, which bridges the two, arguably. Then we have the PMA. But that's also distinctly American Hermeticism, if you like, that stuck its neck out during the darkest days of the Depression. And that's positive thinking. Mitch Horowitz has written extensively on this, tracking it back to the New Thought movement of the late 19th century. In fact, I was reading some Napoleon Hill recently and was thunderstruck by its flat-out, no apologies, magical character. I mean, flat-out witchcraft. In your face, not hiding it. Hill was even known to traffic with spirits. That's how magically orientated he was. Positive thinking and its tributaries get a bad rap in New Age, but I still think there's some suitable power there. I also think it's absolutely a delusion. You can think positive when things are completely going awry. You can believe that you can have faith in humanity because we will be different, but when have we been different? We'll be back. Have a nice break, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Oh, okay, it's working. Did you have a nice break? Did you go for a walk? I hope you did. I wanted to say thank you to everyone. You've been so wonderful supporting me in the last little while. For the new listeners out there, we have a website, TraceElementsRadio.com. I put my news articles up there, and we also have a donate, so if you want to donate, that would be great too. Someone sent me a bag of seeds. I've been doing a lot of sprouting. Not myself, I'm not sprouting, but, sprouting seeds and stuff, and it's been really helping. So, been doing a lot. I am feeling better. It's slow, but all things are. Most of us right now are fighting for our lives. I don't think there's any one of us who really isn't fighting for our lives, so I feel good. We were meant to be here for this exact thing. Now, there's so much negative thinking in the air. A little positive might be a nice corrective, I guess. I don't know about you, but I could use a little bit. Not so much as a staple, but as maybe a side dish. It might be a damn sight healthier than cutting deals with demons. Because why is the best predigitator? The one who tells us the future is the Simpsons. You know what the Simpsons are? This is the same people from Babylon and that area. This is the Jews on one side, the Muslims on the other, Christianity just, following behind, sucking their thumb, saying, yeah, but we want to be Jewish too. You're not. Well, of course, you got your guy, and he's doing a new thing, obviously. But, okay. What's going on right now is exactly my idea with Satanism, because there's a lot of apologists that want to excuse everything as harmless stuff. And it probably is, for the most part. And for the educated, boohoos who toy around with the trappings, but it's iconography and messaging have a habit of inspiring others to take the all death and sacrifice signaling, not so much as a LARP, but as a license to kill. And thinking happy thoughts is okay as long as you don't make yourself blind to do it. I'm going to think happy thoughts no matter what is going on. People are all good, even though they're using makeup that, animals had to be tortured for. You know what I mean? We are bolstering this world's economy by what we buy. So we have given our power to it. So it's best to look at that in the face. And if you can change. Stop. Change what you eat, change what you buy, and don't support that anymore. That's it. But the aeons. Aeons are, just like aeon flux. And it's why they use that term. So aeons are emanations of light. And you know who that is. Well, light and time, basically. They form a part of several Gnostic creation stories and are also identifiable with many other Mediterranean cosmologies of the time. Also blended with the god Aion. It makes for exciting Jesus, Dionysus, Gnostic, Orphic mystery business here. But they are literally and spiritually a mechanism for exploring the unfolding of the divine in creation. They are simultaneously the presiding good guys and good times. Typically, they are birthed by a divine female, the first thought of the true God, a Sophia or Barbelo, Mary, whatever. And this is the three forms of first thought. Three forms of first thought is Barbelo, describing her creation, the creation of the aeons and the sons of God. This is why the mystics' atheism is wrong. But never mind. So I am the first thought, the thought that is in the light. I am the moment that is in all. She in whom the realm of all takes its stand, the firstborn amongst those who came into being, she who exists before all. She is called by three names, although she exists alone, since she is perfect. I am the invisible, within the thought of the invisible one. I am revealed in the immeasurable, ineffable things. I am intangible, dwelling in the intangible. I move in every creature. I am the light of my afterthought that is within every power and every eternal movement, and in invisible lights, and within the powers of the angels, and within the powers of the demons, and every soul in Tartaros, in every material soul. I live in those who came into being. I move in everyone, and I enter them. I walk upright. And those who sleep, I awaken. and I am the sight of those who dwell in sleep. I'm the invisible one in all. I counsel those who are hidden. Since I know the whole realm of all that exists in it, I am numberless, beyond everyone. I am immeasurable, ineffable, yet whenever I wish, I shall reveal myself. I am the head of it all. I am before all. I am all, since I am in everything. I am a voice speaking softly. I am from the beginning. I am in the silence that surrounds every one of them. And the hidden voices is in me, in intangible, immeasurable thought. In the immeasurable silence, I descend into the underworld and shone down on the darkness. I poured water. I am hidden in radiant waters. I gradually dawn on all by my thought. I am weighed down with voice. Through me, knowledge comes. I am in the ineffable and unknowable. I am perception and knowledge, utterly a voice by means of thought. I am the real voice. I cry out in everyone, and they recognize it, since the seed lives in them. I am the Father's thought, and through me came the voice, the knowledge of the everlasting things. I am as thought for all. I am joined to unknowable, intangible thought. I reveal myself in all who know me. For a joint everyone in hidden thought, an exalted voice, and in a voice from the invisible things. The Son is perfect in every respect. He is the Word, who originated through the voice, who came from on high, who has within him the name who is light. The Son revealed the everlasting, and the unknown was known. He revealed what is hard to interpret and what is secret, and he preached to those who live in silence with first thought. And he revealed himself to those who are in darkness. He clarified himself to those in the abyss, the material realm. To those in the hidden treasures, he told ineffable mysteries. He taught unspeakable doctrines to all those who became children of the light. Now the voice that came from my thought exists as three permanences: the Father, the Mother, the Son. The voice is a perceptible speech containing the word, rich in every glory. It has three masculinities, three powers, and three names. They are in the matter of the triad of three shapes, quadrangles, secretly in silence of the ineffable one. He alone came into being as anointed, so the Christ, basically. I anointed him with goodness as the glory of the invisible Spirit. I established these three alone in glory over the eternal realms in the living water. Glory surrounded him who first appeared to the light of the exalted, the aeons and realms. He persisted in light. He stood in the light surrounding him, who is the eye of light, gloriously shining on me. He gave aeons for the Father of all aeons. I the thought of the Father, the first thought, Barbalo, the perfect glory, and the immeasurable, invisible, hidden one. I am the image of the invisible Spirit. Through me all took shape. I am the mother as well, as the light whom she anointed as virgin. She who is called Matrathea, the intangible womb, the unrestrained, the immeasurable voice. Then the perfect Son revealed himself to his eons, who came through him. He revealed, glorified, and enthroned them, and stood in the glory made for himself. They bless the perfect Son, the anointed, and the God who came into being by himself. And they gave glory, saying, He is God's Son. God's Son, He is the being of eternal beings. He sees the eternal beings that He conceived. For you have conceived by your own desire. We glorify you. Ma-mo. You are O. 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 You are A. Which is interesting. I'm getting this from a very, very old writing. I'll tell you about it later. But the AO that I've been telling you guys about, it's mentioned here. Anyway, you are being the eternal realm of the eternal realms. The eternal realm He gave. So this series will abandon the false aeons created by the demiurge in favor of the true children of Barbalo, which includes the demiurge, and therein lies the secret key to this new series. The first, analogy, the subject of study, fixed, separate. This theory and ography will be an ongoing writing, dynamic, present, continuous. We look far and wide for good things about this world and this time, this aeon, so that their lights may augment your light, so that there is more light and less darkness in the world. So what do you think? So next, there must be a coven. It's one of the rules of witchcraft. There must always be a coven. So what is a coven? Firstly, let me tell you what it is not. It is not spending Saturday morning in the suburbs in the front room of a part-time DMV employee's house where she draws down the moon. I mention this on the onset because, at least where I'm sitting, this current magical revival has done an adequate job of rescuing a lot of useful terms from the past 3 decades of neo-pagan Jaipur. But coven remains unrescued. We may discern the shape of what the coven was before it became synonymous with bringing a vegan plate monthly social gathering thing by looking back historically. To older things. Now, the early Christian church continued the Roman Empire's campaign against magic and divination in all its forms. But most of the Christian church uses words that would only be found with gladiators, but we'll let that go. But as early as 300 AD, the Synod of Elvira proclaimed that the Christians practicing Malficium, I think it's called. Malficium should not be given the last rites, basically. So Constantine retained the pagan Roman ban on unauthorized divination. Valentinian made an act of speaking out at night to perform harmful magic punishable by death. So they believed in it. And over the next several centuries, numerous bishops and local authorities issued bans and punishments for such activities as gathering offerings to tree spirits, unauthorized gatherings at holy wells, dressing up as animals, paying services of sorcerers, soothsayers, unauthorized ownership or use of holy relics, and so on. Later, it just became a chance for doctors specifically to stop women from healing people with herbs, gathering as we do. Women, children, old people do the gathering. See, this is where the time of men came in. So only hunting mattered. And the people who were making money from these things mattered. Now, I heard from a psychiatrist. I've been busy the last couple of days. No, I haven't lost my mind. Nice thought, though, because I was going to ask some questions about some things that are going on. And he said, evidence of treatment is evidence of damage. And to look at all things that way. And it's actually, that was really smart. Because a similar statement can be made when looking at 5 or 6 centuries of legal and cultural reactions to a perspective of certain specific forms of magic. If they didn't exist, why were 5 centuries of admonitions required? Not only did something persist, but it looks like something persisted in recognizable form. There's a shape to it. Firstly, it's local, even village specific. And secondly, it has no belief system that is separate from the dominant culture in which it was found. By this point, in the timeline of church fathers such as Augustine of Hippo, had determined that supernatural powers either come from God, in which case, that's just fine, or demons, in which case, it's not fine. It was only the magical revival that came with the grimoires of Europe following the fall of Byzantium, that the possibility that there is some sort of natural magic could be discussed again. So basically, all the things that the grandmothers were doing absolutely could not be done until, okay, we're going to talk about it a little bit. So operationally, this meant a vast majority of forbidden practices were explained and experienced in early Christian milieu. Relics and saints and occasionally local monsters or a legend, that sort of thing. There is no secret survival of classic gods. The classical world survived into the cosmology of the church fathers almost in its entirety, for better or worse. These were Christian experiences of the living cosmos. Thirdly, it was clandestine. This meant gathering at night and or sneaking into the woods. Hence the word shaman. It was because a guy in North Europe went into the woods, saw women dancing, and he called them the shadow men. shaman. So when you think you're hearing some Indian saying that he's a shaman, know that that word did not come from them. It is a European word, shadow men, because, some little panty pisser guy went into the woods and got scared. Anyway, so going into the woods solves at least two things. One, it's where the spirits are. Two, it's where the surveillance isn't. Now, following the commencement of what we might call the grimoire period, if Jake's other magician's hypothesis has any legs, and I think it does, then we see a cross-fertilization of forms and characters into a persistence of band magics. Granted, there are a few centuries where we have a, by and large, absence of evidence thing going on. A challenge. But by the time we get to the pedo witches, something interesting has emerged, at least there, if not anywhere else. Granny Demdike and her crew were eventually quite open, and the sort of operations they performed, and under no illusions as to who the ultimate master of these operations really were. Here, then, is a coven. We'll be right back. Oh, and we're back. Sorry. Yeah, I'll get used to it. At least it's working this time. Isn't that awesome? Okay, so let's talk about this. They met in the wild. They performed unauthorized acts, which could have been anything. Could have been something that took money away from the doctors who wanted to get paid. I don't know. They gathered around a leader who presumably demonstrated no small proficiency in these forbidden arts. Gathering in groups is a communication strategy. Proximity is a communication technology for those who have no access to any other communication technologies. What is the role of a group in the world of high-speed communication technologies? What does it solve? Is it essential or just useful? This is no small question. I wink at the end of the Pieces of 8, where I ask what role of magical groups should be now that there are no longer any real Western secrets, and thus the pain point is no longer located at the transmission of information, but in the embodiment and activation of that information. I remember having this discussion last year. How do we think about group work at a time when it is technologically and operationally redundant? Should groups be project-based? Is it mandatory that they are co-located in both time and space? What about just time? Events have a lot of value. Clubs, not so much. What do we do with all this? Now consider, then, what a coven is, rather than what a coven needs, to paraphrase Captain Jack Sparrow. It is a group of people clandestinely achieving their personal and shared goals. So it is effectively a terrorist cell that sets its own agenda. In the case of the pedo witches, the terrorist label was quite literally true. And it achieves these goals, at least in part, via the application of practical enchantment. It is only in the 20th century that these goals were overlaid with wishy-washy metaphysics based on a confused interpretation of early anthropological research. The promise of wisdom, and I'm making little fingy signs here, and certification was dangled in front of people. Parking across the road in front of the scout hall. Or, like the crappy kung fu that's trained and everyone gets a belt. And I wonder if the launching of the premium membership service didn't in some way emerge out of conversations of these things. Because at the time I was thinking about roles of a group and an individual, of a coven project. Now, premium membership is not in any way a coven. I'm not even sure such a term means today, really. It might speak in some small way to that difference between what a coven is and what a coven needs. That is, collectively and individually achieving goals by the application of practical enchantment. So, this is why we are out there. We have at least some limited forms of communication. And that is remarkable, really. The days of having to use proximity as communication technology are over, at least for now. The day of assuming all physical group work will be replaced with online group work are also mercifully over. Now, instead, we live in a world where instantaneous decimation of magical possibility dares us to achieve it, either collectively or on a presumably project-by-project basis, or individually on an ongoing one. And I think we should. This may be what the pivot to the practitioner looks like in 2017. There's something about this way of thinking that appeals to my desire to decentralize all things. The return of the spirit world to your life and the seizing upon its implications make you a one human trophy or a tropic cascade. The seizure of your personal magical birthright has an impact that extends beyond your own life. It extends to your family, past and present. And this is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit lately. Because people have lost their center. They have no connection to their ancestors, the physical body ones, or the ones off Earth. And when they get it, they're freaked out. But this is what we used to do to know what to do. So what's going on extends right now, what you're doing to your family, all of them before, and all that will come after. Your friendship group, too, it extends to your experience of place, of local politics, of interactions with strangers, even consumer behavior. It is also not wholly beneficial. And we need to be honest with ourselves about that. It is much more vigorous and certainly makes life taste better. But it is disingenuous to describe the experience of magic as anything other than unpredictable. Essential, but unpredictable. Perhaps finding the others isn't an exclusively physical act. Perhaps it's more useful that we are spread across this whole earth, the way we get thousands of individual trophic cascades rather than one single large one, because tiny little ripples in a pond have more of an effect if they're spread out, if they're continuous. And that's perhaps how we re-enchant this world, because it needs to be re-enchanted. And we won't get everyone. We can't save everyone. This is the big part. This is the hard part, because we can't. We might want to, but just like that little bird that would fly away, your first reaction should be to fly away, because most people aren't good. The collective blob approach is unsuitable as a strategy of terrain or trajectory. It requires too many concessions. Gone are the days of arguing over wording, of statements on the environment, and then re-signing e-petitions. A trophic approach requires far fewer concessions. It does not even require a shared belief system beyond possibly what we might call an umbrella animism. It can move with identity and necessity and coalesce around shared goals as needed. It can shatter at the conclusion of a project too. The key difference is how we conceptualize our natural resting state. Water is a liquid until it isn't. Iron is solid until it isn't. What is the resting state of a new magical tradition? Is it still groups? Has it ever been groups? Or is it covens of one? Thousands? Shall we find out? We have so much going on right now. Maybe a tear-it of an unpopular future. I've been asked if I'll read the cards again. I don't know. I'm feeling really strange about it. But I think maybe, why don't we do it in April? That's my birthday. Yeah, let's do it in April. And if someone would like a reading, send me a message. And again, go to TraceElements Radio, and on the left-hand side, you can give me a message, which is cool. 2017 continues to unpack the expected and the inevitable spools of horror, shock, and outrage. But at least let me remind you that spring is close, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. It's worthwhile sitting with that idea for a moment. Change. The unstoppable warming of the soil, triggering the described but not expected process of seed becoming shoot, becoming leaf, becoming solar, sugar factory. Because that's what green plants are. They are how energy of the sun, of soul itself, enters the systems and food supply for the entire planet. Sugars converted in leaf are traded into soil, biome, at the roots for minerals that entered the diets of more complex creatures, who themselves enter the diets of other complex creatures, who are all ultimately returned to the earth as minerals to be exchanged for more sugar in the root zone again after a century or so. Green plants are in a real sense how light embodies itself on earth. It turns out it's quite different if we want to go and buy bananas in a place that has them everywhere. No one thinks to bring them to the market because you'd be selling them for nothing. Meanwhile, people from somewhere else who eat bananas per person, which a lot of people do, pay exorbitant rates for something that's given away in other places. And looking at species assembly on islands, I wonder what people are seeing. The only safe energy systems are those derived from biological systems. A New Guinea gardener can walk through the gates of his garden taking 1 unit of energy and hand out 70. A modern farmer who drives a tractor through a gate takes 1,000 units of energy and gives back 1. Who is the more sophisticated agriculturalist? Islands are novel ecosystems. Like the Amazon, they're better considered overgrown gardens than the European imperial fantasy of pristine nature. The impact of humans has brought hundreds of plants and animals that otherwise wouldn't be there, dramatically increasing biodiversity. European colonists didn't think the people of islands, Australia, or the Amazon farm much because there were no straight lines of wheat. But you will find that almost everywhere on the planet, natural people had the 3 sisters. And the 3 sisters are usually different things, but it kind of goes with the same story I'm telling you. Here, the 3 sisters are squash, corn, and beans. But there's usually 3 sisters, a group of plants, who were the word. You could live on them. Those 3 would keep you all year long if you needed to. Now, in a jungle garden live pigs and chickens. If you want to see chickens, originally Southeast Asian jungle fowl in the first place, you have to see what they used to look like. Watch them stalk their way around overgrown upper ruins. They're quite remarkable. And you can actually see what they were in their last incarnation a little bit. If you look at this one place I've been looking at, I think it's called Pompeii. It has a tiny, largely artificial economy that owes the majority of its money to a big deal with the U.S. military to keep a large presence there. So, they're selling their kids. That's what they're doing. You have to be honest about that, too. There is no civilization on planet Earth now or ever that did not sell their kids and their men and the women. Prostitution is always involved in civilization because there is a hierarchy where some people will have and some people will not. This is what happens. Now, the majority of this money in this one island goes to funding the government. So there are government jobs, or there are jobs for Micronesians in the U.S. That's about it. This means that many people who choose to remain how they were has a serious problem. Many have never worked a day in their life in the way we would look at it, or might have. Why would they? They used to grow their own food, grow their own drugs. Chickens feed themselves in a real outside way. Pigs mostly feed themselves. It's reef-rigged mangrove island, so fishing is still good. Maybe. Much of Japan's tuna comes from those waters, which, we should be leaving the hell alone right now. But anyway, it's far from paradise. And I was not looking at these lifestyles with any kind of rose-tinted glasses. I fantasized about some sort of dictatorial optimism, I guess. There should be freshwater shrimp in those wet taro patches, composing toilets, replacing primitive sewer systems that empty straight into the sea. These should be incorporated into village composting schemes to supplement typically poor island soil, so as to have an extensive range of species. Each of the 5 provinces should have a community nursery that raises at least 100 different permaculture useful plants, from easily obtainable seeds, and then wild plants and seedlings and composted soil. Bananas species range could be extended, at least to include a few plantations to switch up the main starch crop a bit. Because starch is what we really need, not animals. But we're living like kings and queens now. Unfortunately, it's Burger King and Dairy Queen. But an antibacterial, anti-inflammation herbs could be grown alongside clandestinely farmed marijuana if you wanted to build a natural medical system to migrate reliance. Worst of both worlds combination of American healthcare, which is, fast approaching everywhere, and having no money at all. So observed lifeways like our own are incomplete. Do not be surprised if the thing mankind needs to accomplish in order to become truly interplanetary is some kind of interlocking of the best of each culture on this earth. I think about that sometimes. If the evolution of the universe has a purpose, I suppose it would look something like that. Instead, what we have currently is teetering globalist regime, interlocking of the worst of every culture. Gnosticism, though, right? And I think that's the very way to navigate around the white savior problem that infects so much environmentalism and social justice. That's Molson's approach, learning from and then assembling in the best practice of the planet's best agriculturalists rather than swooping in with tractors and Netflix and diabetes. I'm just saying. Now, in this island, there's one main town. Housing, obviously, simple. It's warm. Everyone knows each other. Who needs walls? Who needs gates? The regional people have accidentally arranged their lives to straddle a line between the robust and the anti-fragile. Nothing short of a once-in-the-century typhoon will impact their access to food. Thick-walled churches do double duty as shelters. It's actually clever. Electricity, mobile signals, even internet access are available outside the main town. Which, if the grid goes well or down, oh well. It will get fixed eventually. It doesn't materially impact vital systems. Want to eat bananas? Want to get high? But it seems to me that on an individual, local, and even national level, we should be managing our risk in this way. I'm afraid that it will be on individual levels. People are so sick right now, 25-year-olds with heart attacks. Who even heard of that? And I think the majority of people will fall while some of us will get this together. And then we may form groups again. Hopefully they'll be small. But as it stands, it is the technological systems that sit at the bottom of the pyramid, not natural ones. When they fail, all other vital systems go with them. This is where we have to go back. So please join me next week on Wednesday, and we'll talk about this some more. Thanks so much, everyone, for giving me a chance. And thank you very much, Hawk, for fixing this for me. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.